Coming up on iOS today, I, Mikah Sargent, and my co-host Rosemary Orchard walk you through some of the hidden gestures and features available right there on your iPhones and your iPads. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 613, recorded Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. iOS, hidden gestures and features. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Policy Genius. If someone relies on your financial support, whether it's a child, a parent, or even a business partner, you need life insurance. Head to policygenius.com/iOS to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Hello and welcome to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, watchOS. It's all the OSs, lots more than that Apple has on offer. We love to talk about them here on iOS Today and help you make the most of those devices. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard. And gosh, am I excited for today's episode, Mikah. So many cool things to learn.
Yes. So this is a fun episode because this is an opportunity to kind of dig into these features that oftentimes get missed. It's the discoverability of some of these features is hidden, and they only pop up from time to time. And sometimes they make it into TikToks, and sometimes they make it into Twitter posts that go semi-viral. And so this was an opportunity kind of kicked off by one of those situations to look at some of the more hidden gestures and features that are available on these devices. And we're kicking things off with multitasking on iPad, because I think this is, of course, been a long time criticism of iPadOS. And I feel like it's a fair criticism, because this is one of the situations where figuring out how to do multitasking on an iPad can be kind of complicated. So much so that Apple's support document, as we're showing here on the screen, has all of these different areas where you can they're anchor points where you can jump down and learn more about the different multitasking methods. So there are three types of multitasking that are available, I should be clear, right now, because that will change again when the next version of iPadOS releases. But there's split view, where you have two apps that are side by side. So you can have, Safari on the left and Notes on the right, and you can change how big or small each of those apps are by dragging those segments. So oops, that's the wrong one. Here I can show you. So I've got Notes here on the screen, and I've dragged up from the bottom to open up Safari, and I can pop that in. And now we've got two areas side by side. On the left is Notes, on the right is Safari, and there's this little drag bar in the middle. I can drag that over this way to make Safari bigger and make Notes smaller, or I can drag it the other way to make Safari smaller and Notes bigger. There's also a slide over view, and this is where you have an app that pops in from the side of the screen that can be it's kind of for temporary use. So you don't always need to have an app on screen. A good example of slide over is the 1Password app, where if you've got passwords that you've got saved and you want to quickly kind of pop those into a Safari page and you're not using the Safari extension, then the app can kind of slide over and it be there as a floating window that can be on the left or the right side of the screen. Very easy to drag in and drop out very simply. And at any time, I can tap on the top here on these three dots that show up in the top middle of the iPad. And you can see the different options, which on the far left, of course, is the sort of full screen. In the middle is half and half. So then I could open up News, for example, and have that pop up as the secondary one. Or I'm going to go ahead and swipe that away and go back to this view, tap it again, and then choose the slide over view that I was just talking about, where I will have the App Store appear in the background and have Notes be the slide over that I can then use the bottom bar to move to the well, I thought, move to the left or to the right. I guess I've got to use the top bar to do that. And then center window is a special one where you can open a center window that lets you focus on a specific item. So an example would be if you had the Notes app open and you wanted to focus on a specific note, you can kind of have that pop up in the middle of the screen and have it there. And Apple gives directions on multiple ways to go about accessing multitasking, including using the multitasking menu, which is the button at the top, the dock at the bottom of the screen, or Spotlight, which can also help you access multitasking. So you open a map, you tap the multitasking button, you choose the view that you want, split view or slide over, and then those will let you select what you want to do. And then you can tap on that app that you want to have on the screen. In split view, the second app appears side by side with the current app. And of course, in slide over, the second app opens full screen and the current app moves to a smaller window that you can move to the right or left side of your screen. So depending on what you're trying to do, you saw that when I tapped on the App Store, it didn't appear as slide over. It appeared large in the background with the current app I had in that slide over view. Of course, the dock, as I mentioned before, which is on the bottom of the screen, I swipe up from the bottom to access the dock, and then I can tap and drag an app from the dock and move it around however I want it on the screen. If I drag the app to the left or right edge of the screen, then it's going to appear as split view. And if you do let go of the app in the middle of the screen, that is where it will pop up in slide over. The app library, of course, can also be used to open iPad apps. Apple says just tap the app library icon on the far right side of the dock, which will then access the app library. As you can see, as you can see here on my screen, the app library is opened. And then all you do is you touch and hold on one of the larger app icons. So that's any of these where it's just showing 4, and drag it into split view or slide over. And then you can then tap in and add the other ones that you want to as well. So lots of different ways to be able to access that. And as far as center window goes, you need an app that supports it. So Mail and Notes are two of the apps that support center window. If you touch and hold on an individual email, note, or other item, then choose Open in New Window, that will make that work. So let me create a new Notes and call this crayon colors, and then we'll put some in here: green, orange, blue. And then if I tap and hold on a note for pasting there on the left and choose Open in New Window, then you can see it pops up right here in the middle of the screen. So I've kind of got a focused mode without having to close out of the Notes app or make this note full screen. So it's just a quick way to be able to see those. And then from there, of course, you can make all sorts of different adjustments to your apps by tapping and dragging on the edges of those apps that are popped up and be able to change where they appear on your iPad. So lots and lots that you can do with multitasking. That doesn't even cover dragging and dropping between apps, which is possible. And then last but not least, I'll mention some of the gestures that you can do. So again, swiping up from the bottom edge of the screen will let you, and here, let me show you again. If I swipe up from the bottom edge of the screen and then let go, then you can see the task switcher that pops up and lets you go between these different apps. Swiping left or right, obviously, lets you choose different apps that you want to use. And then you can also tap again into one of them if you want to. While using an app, if you swipe left or right across your screen with 4 or 5 fingers, that of course will let you switch between apps. So I'm currently taking 4 of my fingers, I'm putting them on the screen and swiping to the side, and that will let me move to the left and to the right. As yes, Kevin's showing the finger on the screen to do that. And it says on an iPad Pro with Face ID or the iPad Pro 11-inch or iPad Pro 12.9-inch, you can swipe along the bottom edge of your screen to switch to another app. So basically, the iPads that don't have home buttons are able to be swiped across the bottom with just one finger to switch between using that bar that's down there at the bottom. And then if you swipe up from the bottom edge of the screen, obviously that will let you return to the home screen. But you may not know that you can also take all 5 fingers and make a pinch gesture, and that will also take you to the navigation menu to access other apps. All right, whew, that was a lot to cover, but that's because multitasking on iPad is kind of complicated. And I imagine, Rosemary, for you, a lot of this is muscle memory, right?
Yeah, it has become muscle memory over time. But that said, there's still, little tips and tricks that I've picked up, especially recently, that I hadn't realized before. Somebody wrote in a little while ago asking why whenever they open Safari, they were getting multiple windows at the bottom. And one of the ways that you can tell that you're getting multiple windows of an item is when you're in this multitasking view, which I got to just by swiping up from the home screen of my phone. I can see next to drafts and next to shortcuts, there are 2 little squares there. And if I tap on the title, then I'll see those windows, which is really useful. And something else I wanted to mention is if you are in an app, say, for example, you happen to be on the homepage, which has got lots of great useful information, especially all for back episodes, and you've got something in slide over, then what you can do is that you can actually swipe up on that slide over app, and you've got all of those different apps there, which can be really useful if you're just sort of popping in and out, especially on something like this little iPad mini. It's only 7.9 inches, so you're not getting a lot of screen space, but it's nice to be able to just pop up some notes and then quickly switch to your password manager. And you can swipe on the sort of the bar at the bottom that looks like the home screen bar there. And one other tiny little thing that I wanted to mention very quickly is Shortcuts has support for split screen. So if you've got 2 apps that you frequently open in split screen, there's a simple shortcuts action called split screen between, and then you select your different devices. And if you expand it, you can choose the ratio. So do you want 1/3 and 2/3, half and half? And then when you run it, then it'll just open those 2 apps for you straight away, which is just a really useful trick. So yeah, loads to learn about multitasking and all of these things. And honestly, don't expect to learn everything all at once. Pick a few things and learn them, and then go back and check the doc again and see what else there is. Come back and look at this episode, whatever it is that helps you find all those things that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. There's a lot that can be covered in this, short period of time, and you'll likely forget some of it, but you can always come back and check this out and check out the links that we include in the show notes to help you figure out what you might want to do or need to do. One that I find kind of complicated to do, but is a possibility, is some of the text shortcuts that you can do on an iPad. So iPad for a long time has had, and you can actually do this, I forgot, on iOS as well, has for a long time had some gestures for copying, pasting, undoing, etc. If I take my 3 fingers, and you'll see that I'm using, if you're watching, my index finger, my middle finger, and my thumb, and I rest them on the screen after I have selected some text, then up at the top, you will see a little menu appear that says undo, cut, copy, paste, and redo. If I pinch my fingers together, it allows me to copy the text that I just got. Now I'm going to pop open notes with my multitasking gestures that I was just talking about. And you'll see I have here a note for pasting. And that is because it is a place where I'm going to paste some text. I will now put my 3 fingers back on the screen and move them out to paste the text that I just copied. Now, I want to talk about a viral post that I saw on TikTok not too long ago that had people wondering what the heck was going on. Because what the person had done was, I believe it was an iPhone and an iPad that were right next to each other. And they had found a photo, say like this photo of the MacBook Air here, and it looked like they had grabbed the photo with their fingers on their iPhone, and then they took their fingers while they were still pinched and they moved them over to the iPad and then they let go as if they had kind of picked up the photo from one thing, dragged it over to the other, and then let go. And so it seemed like what they were doing was some sort of AR thing where they had virtually, or in augmented reality, grabbed the photo off of the page and then dropped it on their iPad. When in reality, what was happening is that they were using two different things that are built into iOS and iPadOS. They were using those 3-finger gestures for copy and paste, and they were using the built-in continuity keyboard. There, I wasn't able to copy the photo. And that also has to do with website things, but they were using the copy and paste gestures that are built into the iPad and iPhone, and then continuity keyboard, which is this feature where on one device and another device that are both logged in to the same iCloud account, I can copy and paste text, images, and other things using the magic of the cloud between the two. And so they took these two features that are kind of, not front of mind features and made it look as if it was this very magical thing, when in reality it was two pretty common features that existed, but just seemed like it was so much more. So that's something to keep in mind, that sometimes these features are just built in and, we don't use them, or we don't think of them in such a dramatic way as this video made it look, which added to that mystique and made it seem like they were on an iOS version of the future that we hadn't heard about. Now, with those 3-finger gestures, if I rest my 3 fingers on the screen, I can move them to the left to undo and move them to the right to redo. So at any time you can do undo gestures that same way. I find this gesture of pinching to copy and unpinching to paste not intuitive and not very easy to do. For me, it doesn't feel right and I don't get it right. And so sometimes that doesn't copy and paste. So not a fan of it personally. But I want to make sure that you know that those gestures are available if that is something that you're able to do easily with your fingers. But for some reason, for me, my fingers are all different, lengths. And so putting them exactly how I need them onto the screen and moving them apart, I'm not very dexterous in that way. And so it becomes a complicated thing where sometimes it just doesn't work. And that's because I can't gesture properly, as it were. So those are the cut, copy, and paste gestures that are available, as I said, not just on iPad, but you can also do those on iPhone as well.
Yeah, they're really useful. And I have to say, Mikah, just like you, I struggle with both remembering them and also doing them. I always want to use 3 fingers and my thumb to sort of pinch and so on, and that doesn't work. But what I do instead, and this might be a good tip for people who are struggling to remember like the pinching and the spreading of the fingers and doing it with 3, because that's the tricky bit, is I just instead Girl Scout promise, but spread out. Like, so I take 3 fingers. You don't have to, wrap your thumb over your little finger. That's not required. I just do that. But make sure they're spread out. This is another problem. If you've got all your 3 fingers together, then it kind of looks to your device like you're just sort of resting your finger flat on the screen, and that's not going to trigger something. But if you've got 3 fingers with just a gap in between them, I just tap and I use the menu that pops up. It works really well. I've had no problems with that, and I found that that's a much easier experience for me, and I still get the benefit of those really easy to grab cut, copy, and paste gestures.
Yes, and point of clarification, thank you, Rosemary, that feature is universal clipboard. Continuity is the blanket term for all of the different ways that the devices kind of interact with one another, but it's universal clipboard that is that specific feature. All right, let's take a quick break before we come back with some more hidden gestures and features, this time from Rosemary. But we do want to talk about Policy Genius, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. Think about the hundreds of dollars that you pay per year to protect your homes, your cars, your phones, maybe. I think about Apple Care every single month. And so it can be kind of wild how much we end up having to pay. But too many of us aren't thinking about and taking the steps needed to protect our families' finances. Mortgage payments, private student loans, other types of debt don't just disappear if something happens to you. And that is where a life insurance policy can provide your loved ones with a financial cushion that they can use to cover those costs. And it can provide you with peace of mind that even in a worst case scenario, they will be protected. I have life insurance, and I have it set up so that I can make sure that the two pets that I very much love and adore, if they somehow outlive me, are taken care of, that, you know, my partner is taken care of, that my family is taken care of. And just knowing that if something were to happen to me, knock on wood, God forbid, all the other things we say at that point, that there wouldn't be this huge worry outside of the worries that, you know, a family has by default. That's the thing, is there's no way of keeping your family from not going through the loss, but there is a way to ease them through that process by making sure that the things that they shouldn't have to worry about are taken care of. Having life insurance through your job, which many, some of us have, that may not be enough. And most people need, it turns out, up to 10 times more coverage to properly provide for their families. Typically, life insurance gets more expensive as you age, so it's smart to get a policy sooner rather than later. And if you're wondering how Policy Genius works, well, here is how it works. First, Policy Genius is an insurance marketplace that makes it easy to compare quotes from top companies like AIG and Prudential in one place to find your lowest price on life insurance. You could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. Options start at $17 per month for $500,000 of coverage. You just click the link on the show page or head to policygenius.com/iOS to get personalized quotes in minutes and find the right policy for your needs. The licensed agents at Policy Genius work for you, not the insurance companies. So they're on hand through the entire process to help you understand your options so you can make decisions with confidence. Policy Genius doesn't add on extra fees or sell your info to third parties. It has thousands of 5-star reviews across Google and Trustpilot. It has options that offer coverage in as little as a week and avoids unnecessary medical exams. And since 2014, Policy Genius has helped more than 30 million people shop for insurance and placed more than $150 billion in coverage, billion with a B. Oh, and by the way, while you're there, Policy Genius has home, auto, disability, renters, and more. So you can check those out as well. Head to, this is a special link, policygenius.com/iOS. I know all of you out there are very smart and can figure this out just heading to policygenius.com. We want you to use that link so they know you came from here. policygenius.com/iOS to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Thank you, Policy Genius, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. Back to the show. Rosemary Orchard, tell us about your selections for hidden gestures and features.
Well, I mean, it was really difficult to pick them. And I just want to start with one gesture or a couple of gestures and sort of tips based around lists, actually, because I think this is something that people don't realize, that if you've got a really long list of things on, say, an iPhone or an iPad, and I have a really long reminders list here, Micah's on there 5 times, then you can actually really quickly select these. And there's 2 different ways that you can do this, depending on where you are. So because I'm in reminders, I can take 2 fingers, just 2, and then what I can do is I can just swipe down on my list and I can get all the way to the bottom where Reverb Mike has made an appearance because he was in our chat room before the show started. And I've selected all of these. And you know, that's really simple. Just 2 fingers and drag down. And that works on in a lot of applications. It works in reminders, it works in mail, and all sorts. So give that a try, swiping down with 2 fingers. The other one that you can use, and this is where you've entered a sort of select mode, which is not so easy to do in reminders, but where you've got, say, for example, lots of emails in an inbox, then you can just tap down on that little checkbox next to all of those emails and then just swipe down the screen with 1 finger as well, which can be really useful because that way you can just select a lot of things and then unselect the few that you don't want. So I just wanted to mention that one quickly because that's kind of the one that inspired this episode today, which is really good. A developer saying that he wished more other developers would do that. So, you know, always good to share those features. But the next one I want to show is something that I think people really don't know about, because my dad loves taking photos on his iPhone and he takes a lot of pictures and he takes a lot of video. And he didn't know that you can adjust your slo-mo on iOS after you've taken the video. So when you record a slow-mo video on iOS, it will automatically, and what I'll do is I'll just pop up the camera. I'll tell you what, I'll do it on my iPhone here because that's a little bit easier for me to control because it's, depending on your device, you may not be able to do slow-mo with the front-facing camera, and you can on my iPhone, but I can't on my iPad mini. Okay, so this slow-mo, as I record it, is automatically deciding which parts of what I'm saying are going to be slowed down. Okay, so then when I go and play it back afterwards, then it will have automatically selected something. And there we go. You can see if you're watching that I blinked very, very slowly. And that's okay. It does a pretty good job of figuring out what it is that you wanted to be in slow-mo because it's guessing because you don't know what's going to happen while you're recording, right? But you can actually control this. So I have a video and I just need to double check which one it is. Yes, it's this one. So I took a video of this bee on the weekend, and it's a bit fast. It's a bit blurry because bees are very, very fast. But what I can do is I can tap on edit, and then I can see down at the bottom underneath my video, there's lots of very short lines, and then there's a big vertical line, two smaller lines with some spaces in between, another big vertical line, and then it continues with more, short vertical lines. And so what I can actually do is I can actually drag these, and I can drag them all the way to the end and make the entire video slow-mo. Also, this is where you can edit, the length of your video and so on and so forth. I'm just going to crop it back to where the bee flies out of the frame. And so now I've made the entire part of my video slow-mo. And so I can save it as a video, or I can save it to this video, or I can save it as a new video clip so that I don't mess with the original. And now when I tap play, then you can see this little bee bumbling around doing his thing. And this is slow-mo bee wings. If you're watching, those slow-mo bee wings are speedy. They are very fast. But I've got an entire video in slow-mo of this really cute little bumblebee, zooming off from a flower and having a great day. And that's something that you can do after you've taken the photo. If you take a photo using the portrait effects, you can change which portrait effect, like studio lighting or mono and things like that, after you've taken the photo. So it's well worth going back and tapping on the edit button and just playing with these things to see what you can do. And if it's a really big change, then iOS will automatically offer to save it as a new photo or video for you. So if you're cropping things and so on and so forth, so that you don't lose the original. So definitely go and have a play with that. You don't feel like you have to take every single version of a studio photo or the studio lighting with a portrait photo when you do it. Take a really good photo, and then go and change that afterwards and see which one's the best.
Nice. All right. Any other ones that you want to cover?
Yeah, I did want to mention accessibility shortcuts. And accessibility shortcuts, honestly, iOS is doing a pretty great job with accessibility. I'm really pleased with the various options that they're offering. And we keep hearing from listeners who are saying that their devices are really being useful for them, which is great. But accessibility options are kind of for everybody. You don't have to have a specific need to use them. You just need to use them. That's all you need to do. And what you can do on your iPhone, and you can do this on the iPad as well. And the actual section that appears in the accessibility menu inside of settings is going to vary depending on which device you have. So if you have a device with a home button and Touch ID, then it will have the home button in the menu option. Otherwise, it will probably say side button, which is the power button that you would use to turn your phone screen on and off, turn your phone on and off, and also to trigger the accessibility settings. And when, the side button will allow you to control the settings, and then there it is, accessibility shortcut. So the accessibility shortcut gives you a whole bunch of options. So what you can do, and this is very useful for people who want to, for example, have Zoom quickly available to them. So now I've selected Zoom, and this is multi-select if you want, so you can just have one or more options. So now if I triple click the side button, because I've set this up, then it zooms in for me. And this is also a very good feature to know that it exists, because a lot of people turn something like this on, and then how do I get out of this? I don't know what I'm doing. Triple click. Okay, triple click and you go back to normal. You can turn all of these off if you like, but there's one here, Mikah. I didn't know this existed, and this is great. Apple Watch mirroring. it's going to be so much easier to show our Apple Watches on iOS today now, because it connects to my Apple Watch and it'll take a moment to show up. And then look, this is my Apple Watch. This is the breathe face. You can see the little headphones at the top. That's my podcasting focus mode. And on my Apple Watch itself, I've got a blue outline indicating that this is being mirrored to somewhere else. And then I could even take it further and AirPlay mirror that to another device if I wanted to. But now I can go ahead and do all the cool things on my Apple Watch and easily show them to everybody. That's amazing. I'm so excited for this. So it turns out I'm learning new things as well with this. So that was a really great find. I'm really glad I found that. And one thing another few quick things that I wanted to mention, just because there are so many features, and I'd love for you all to write in and tell us your favorite features as a side note. But there are some things that you can do that you might not have realized in Safari and just around your iPhone or iPad. So in Safari, for example, you can pick up a tab and then you can just rearrange these things. So you can move things wherever you like. And this can be especially useful if you're trying to work with tab groups. Okay, so if you create a new empty tab group, and I'll call it hello, then what you can do is from your other list, you can pick up one of these tabs and just drop it into there. And then when you go into that tab group, you can rearrange things. You can't rearrange things if you only have one tab, but that's not really a huge surprise, I don't think, for everybody. Another one that you can do, which people, actually, I'll rotate that back, may not have realized, is when you scroll to the bottom of a screen, especially if it's a very long screen, the Twit pages are really good, so they're not super long. But if you scrolled all the way down and you're like, oh, no, I need to go get something at the top. Don't scroll like this. Go and tap the time in the top left. And a lot of apps will also let you scroll back to where you were before if you accidentally touch the time. Unfortunately, Apple's apps aren't those, but things like Tweetbot and Apollo and some other great apps, if you tap the time to scroll up to the top, will then scroll you back down to where you were. And I have to say that is such a really nice little feature that I think people may have missed out on at some point in the past, Micah. I know that whenever I tap the time and then I scroll somewhere and then I realize, oh no, I didn't mean to scroll there. Now I have to scroll back because the app doesn't support tapping again. So disappointing. That there is one more bonus tap or swipe action in this case. So I've got the calculator open on my iPhone and I'm typing in some numbers and I didn't mean to type the 1, but if I tap the C, it's going to clear this entire input. Take your finger and swipe on your input. Okay. Swipe from the end to the beginning and then it gets rid of a number for you. And that is such a cool trick. And I think, especially if you're typing longer, bigger numbers, then you might have missed out. And don't forget, a lot of us like rotation lock on our devices. So if you're sort of lying down or at an angle, your phone doesn't rotate. But if you do rotate your iPhone, and this is going to look a little bit weird now because it's zoomed out on my screen, but if you rotate your iPhone, you get a scientific calculator with lots more options. So that's built in. So try rotating things, tapping things, swiping things. Worst case scenario, you maybe close an app that you didn't mean to close, but hopefully it won't be one that didn't have hopefully it'll be one in which you'd saved all your data. iOS is pretty good about automatic saving anyway.
Absolutely. That is a fantastic tip. I love that. And now I don't have to completely clear out things if I'm in there. Folks, up next, we've got the news, and I hope you got some awesome tips out of this. We'd love to hear about which ones made you go, wait, you can do that? Send those to iOS Today at twit.tv. It is now time for the news. Up first is a really exciting thing for developers and eventually those of us who are eagerly awaiting the introduction of the next version of Apple's operating systems come the fall, which is that live activities are now available in beta. Those words alone don't mean a whole lot, but Rosemary, tell us what that means in terms of what we can expect down the line and why developers are pumped about this right now.
Yeah. So imagine you've ordered a delivery from your favorite takeout place, or you've ordered an Uber to come pick you up, and you get 16 notifications telling you what's going on. Okay. So your order has been received. Your order has been confirmed by the restaurant. Your order is being prepared. Your order is being cooked. Your order is waiting for the server to come and collect it. The order is now waiting for pickup, blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. It's very frustrating. You're getting constant pings on your phone. And especially if you've got other things going on at the same time, you're going to find that those notifications disappear a little bit. Now, on iOS 16, Apple have changed the notification center a little bit and your lock screen, where notifications now appear at the bottom of your screen rather than at the top. But what they're adding are live widgets at the bottom. Oops, I didn't mean to open my home there. But the idea behind these live widgets is it's a widget that appears on your home screen for a period of time while a particular activity is ongoing, and then it updates during that time. So for your order, I mean, I'm going to take the Domino's one because I believe that's fairly universal. You know, it goes from the order is received to it's being prepared, it's in the oven, and it's ready for collection, or it's out for delivery. Those steps can appear marked as a sort of timeline on a notification, special kind of notification called a live activity on your home screen. And every time you pick up your phone, that will take pride of place until that is over. And I'm really excited about this because I think it's very much going to streamline people's experience. There is nothing worse than I've had, like I ordered takeout 2 weeks ago and now I'm going through clearing out old notifications and somehow there's still 5 of them in there from one order, people. There are too many notifications for these things, but live activities are intended to help us solve this. And of course, tapping on those live activities will take you straight into the app at the right place so that you can then do something about it or find out more information, whatever it is. So say, for example, it's takeout being delivered and you can see that the person is out delivering it. Then if you tap on it, then it might provide you with the delivery person's contact information so that you can send them, as Mikah might need to, some extra instructions on how to find your building or whatever it is. So, you know, this is very exciting. And it's something that Apple did say was not going to be available right away in the early beta. So developers have only really just got their hands on this at the end of last week. But hopefully we'll be seeing some awesome new things with this soon. And I can't wait to see what developers do. People always surprise me in the best of ways when it comes to implementing cool new features.
Yes, I agree. I'm excited about live activities as well. And in particular for even the ones that you're mentioning, where I would love for Instacart to have this feature available when iOS 16 rolls out, because it would be nice to have that right there on the home screen or on the lock screen. All right. Up next is some changes also to the beta. Of course, now that the public beta is available and more folks are able to try out Apple software before it launches, you know, we hear about this more often. Apple has made some changes to an upcoming feature that it has where you can edit or resend messages that you send in iOS 16. So there are different ways that so up to this point, you have not been able to, once you've sent a message, make an edit to it. And that is a new feature that's coming so that if I send a message and it has the wrong word in it, I could easily make that adjustment. But Apple is changing how long you have until you can do it and how, you know, what all can be changed and what it looks like whenever something's been edited to make it so that the feature is, I think, as transparent as it possibly can be, and that it is respectful of kind of all parties involved. I think that's the best way to put it. So do you have deets on the specifics there with iMessage editing?
Yeah, so specifically on iMessage editing, and thank you, Mikah, for being my guinea pig that I've just used for this. So I sent Mikah a message, and I started out by sending Mikah a message that said, "Hi, Mikah," and then I edited it. And then underneath this, there is a small word that says edited, and that's been there since the beginning of the betas. But now what I can do is I can tap on this and I can see that edit history. And I think this is really good. A lot of people are quite upset that it's taking away the power, but I have to say, you know, as there are a lot of bullies out there who unfortunately will always use technology to try and abuse their victims. And the fact that they could send something and you might have seen it as a notification, and then when you opened it to take a screenshot of it or something, it changes in front of your eyes, and then you can't prove to anybody else that that's actually what they said first. I feel like Apple have made the right decision here. This is very much intended for accidental typos. Like I accidentally I start typing Mikah and it autocorrects to Mike, or something like that. You know, things like that. Things which aren't intended to be, I'm completely and utterly changing the content of my message. When I sent something that was completely and utterly incorrect, like, I don't know, I accidentally start sending Micah 1001 cat pictures, you know, because I have a shortcut automation that's gone awry. Let's assume it's that, rather than just me spamming Micah with cat pictures, as I might want to do. Then what I can do is for up to 2 minutes after I have sent a message, I have this undo send option. And when I undo this, then it disappears. But I've only got 2 minutes now. It was 5 minutes before, and they've decided that that is perhaps a little bit long. It's one of those things where I don't know if there's a particular time frame that is the right time, but having had a couple of friends who've accidentally used features in apps to clear conversation histories, having not had them realize that they're doing it for an entire group chat, not just them. I think it's really good that Apple are not letting you just go back and blanket delete everything for everybody. It is definitely a good feature to only have a few minutes in which you can do this. Again, it goes back to that whole, I've sent something and now it's disappeared. If you've only got 2 minutes in which to do it, then the chances that somebody will see it in those 2 minutes are considerably lower than if it were 5 minutes. You know, 2.5 times more. Yeah, the chance of seeing it is 2.5 times higher in the 5 minutes than it would be in the 2 minutes, probably. So
I'm glad that this has been updated. And yes, the idea that it could be used for gaslighting purposes is what makes the difference here. On my Mac, I am not running the beta. And so if folks were curious what it looks like when you edit a message that has been sent to someone who's not using the beta, which has this editing feature, the message that Rosemary originally sent said, "Hi, Mikah." And so that message comes in just fine. But afterward, there is a message that says, edited to, quote, "Hello, Mikah," quote. So it actually spells it out, kind of how macOS used to, when you would send screen effect messages, it would say sent with fireworks or sent with balloons. It just very clearly spells out edited to "Hello, Mikah." And although Rosemary unsent a message and it shows that way on my phone, which is running the beta, on my Mac, which is not running the beta, both of those messages are still there and were not unsent. So don't rely on that if you are talking to folks who are on previous versions of iOS, that those messages will be unsent, as they will not.
Yes.
All right.
Especially if they've got a Mac in the mix, people tend not to update those quite as quickly. The macOS Ventura release is usually scheduled to be, or the macOS release is usually scheduled to be a month after the iOS release, or at least a couple of weeks. So, if somebody's got a Mac, they're still going to see that.
Yes. And then Apple has a new video out to help folks who are making the switch from Android to iOS that gives you lots of more information to help you figure out what you need to do to make that switch. It's 4 minutes and 35 seconds. It's called Switching to iPhone, All Your Questions Answered. And I love that it's got bookmarks too. So if I switch to iPhone, will it be easy to transfer my contacts, photos, and messages? Can I trade in my Android smartphone? Will it hold up over time? Will it be reliable? Will it get the latest updates? How will my personal info be protected? Will I get support from Apple? All of those questions are available to you and in the video itself and are answered by a person from Apple there in the video.
Yeah, I've previously helped some folks use the switch to iOS app that you can download on Android, and it went really, really smoothly. It was really impressive. And fortunately, other apps such as WhatsApp and Telegram and so on are doing a much better job of allowing you to transfer your message history from one platform to another, because it was previously, if you had a history set up on Android, then you could restore an Android, but you couldn't take it to an iPhone or vice versa. And those are fortunately getting much better now. Pretty much every app, I believe, that is cross-platform is doing a better job of allowing you to do that, or just syncing things around in the first place. So you can sign in and all of your stuff is there, just like it would be if you signed into Dropbox on a Mac. You can use Dropbox on both devices as well.
Yay. All right, let us move on to Shortcuts Corner. welcome to Shortcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the shortcuts expert, provides a response. Up first is an announcement. Tell us about it, Rosemary.
Well, I mean, I've been automating and I created a bot that has written a book for me. Okay, not quite. I actually had to write the book myself about shortcuts, but there is a book called Take Control of Shortcuts, and 2.0 has just released. And that is available from Take Control Books, where you can download it in EPUB, Mobi, PDF, etc. And it's got loads of things in there. And there's going to be an update in September for iOS 16, iPadOS 16, and of course, macOS Ventura when that comes out. So I'm really excited about this. And if you are an owner of the previous edition, then if you look at the end of your old book, then it'll show you how to get a discount on the new one as well. And if you bought the old one in the last 90 days, it's a free upgrade, because I know some folks in the chat room have been asking about whether or not there would be a free upgrade if they bought it recently. And so if it was in the last 90 days, the answer is definitely yes. So I'm really excited. There's loads of stuff in here, loads of examples, loads of shortcuts that you can download, and, you know, everything from doing
that's awesome.
movie time to automatically canceling your work focus mode if you're on vacation, things like that. You know, so many fun examples that I was able to build and share with people. And I'm already working on, you know, the next point update, which won't be a brand new release. It'll just be an update to this one. So everyone who gets this one will then get the update in September. So I'm just very excited about that.
I'm so excited too. I can't wait to read through this and see all sorts of ideas. I love that there are downloads available so that you can follow along. I think that's the best way for me to learn, is looking at the shortcuts that other people have created, seeing the logic that they built into it and going, oh, okay. I just had my friend Jason Snell, friend of the show and now panelist on Mac Break Weekly, send me a shortcut the other day for some stuff that I was doing on the Mac, and looking through at how he set things up gave me some inspiration for some other things that I was working on. And so that's always very handy. So I think this is a gem and an absolute valuable resource that will spark many people's next steps in shortcuts. So speaking of that, Russ writes in, "Hi, Mikah and Rosemary. I hope you're well. I had a few questions related to shortcuts and a device called Stream Deck. I'm sure you are familiar with the Stream Deck device. Oh yeah, I've got one on my desk right now. Have you ever reviewed it on the show? I love automation and find it pretty cool, even for the home user. I do videos for online teaching and use the device to start my camera, to unmute my microphone, to turn on my video light, etc. It can also run commands like shortcuts, which allow for further integration, but I believe only if they are converted to applications. So here's a simple use case. I want to program a button to set my system volume on my iMac to, say, 20%. That way, after a call or listening to a video, I can easily lower it. I created a shortcut on my Mac to do this, but how do I convert that to an application on the Mac? Once I do that, I can then assign a Stream Deck button and do it with one push. I think you have to select Use as Quick Action and also Finder. I also know the applications are stored in the Other Applications folder under Username, but I can't get it to work. Many other use cases, but you get the idea. Thanks for all of your help. Really enjoy the show." And this is from Russ once again. So essentially, I think that there are two things here. Russ believes that the one way that you can get shortcuts to work with the Stream Deck is by turning them into applications that run when you click on them. And so Russ is asking for help turning a shortcut into an application. But then the other question that's kind of buried under this is that the only way to get shortcuts to run on a Stream Deck is if they've been turned into applications first, so that you can then launch application using the built-in features of the Stream Deck? And I imagine that Rosemary Orchard has some thoughts and ideas here.
Yeah, I do. And the answer to the question is yes, you can make it into an application very easily, but there's about 3 to 7 different ways that you can actually have your Stream Deck run your shortcuts action for you. So I'll start with converting it into an application. And unfortunately, I've not set my Mac up for easy screen sharing during iOS today. It's a bit complex with the way that I'm sharing my iOS devices. But what you do on the Mac, when you've got a shortcut, you just go to File, Add to Dock. And then you can actually remove it from your dock, but it will be in your users applications folder. So not the main applications folder that's shared with all of the users on your Mac. It will be in your personal users applications folder. And then bam, you can open that with the Stream Deck. You can open that with Bunch. You can do any number of cool things with that. And when your shortcut updates, even if it renames and changes icon, the little icon and the name in the applications folder, those won't change, but it will actually still run the right shortcut for you, which is really useful to know. But there's a couple of other ways. And I just wanted to quickly mention these because Apple does actually talk about them in the Shortcuts Mac help on their website, such as running a shortcut through the command line and also through Apple Script. And you might be going, oh my gosh, command line scripting, Apple Script. No, this is not what I listened to iOS today for. And I know I stuck a Mac question in there. It's okay, folks. It's all shortcuts related. But if you're really ready for this, go on. I'll tell you, okay? There are like 2 words that you need to know to do this as an Apple script, or 3. So tell application shortcuts to run, and then you just put the name of your shortcut, put it in some double quotes, tell application shortcuts with a big S to run, and then you just put the name of your shortcut there. If you want an even easier way, go on. Let's do it as a command line script. Okay? Shortcuts, run, quotation mark, name of shortcut, quotation mark. That's it.
Wow.
So you've got several options there, Russ. It's probably going to be easiest to do the add to dock approach. Again, you can take it out of your dock. It doesn't have to stay in your dock, but adding it to your dock adds this sort of mini application. It's just a shortcut to your shortcut, actually. Shortcuts, so that you can run it easily. But that's probably the easiest way to go, but it's not the only way to go. There's lots of options there. And the Stream Deck's pretty great. That's, how I managed to switch between showing things on my iPhone versus showing things on my iPad while I am doing iOS today.
Yep, same. And those were all great answers. And I love that it could be as easy as the last one that you mentioned there. Our next one comes from Ken. Ken writes, "Hi, Mikah and Rosemary. In the Shortcuts app on my iPhone XR running iOS 15.6, I have set up 2 automations and they don't work, at least not the way I expect them to. One is set up to turn off Wi-Fi when I leave the home, and the other is set up to turn Wi-Fi on when I arrive at home. Whenever one of these automations kick in, I get a notification on my Apple Watch with a run button, and I have to tap the run button to make the automation execute. I expect these automations to do their thing without any action from me. The only reason I was about to ask, why do you want to do this in the first place? The only reason I want to do this is because of Comcast. I live in the suburban Detroit area, and Comcast is all around me. But the city I live in does not have Comcast service. If I leave Wi-Fi on when I'm away from home, then my phone insists on connecting to Xfinity hotspots, and there is no option to forget the network. I get internet and cell phone service both from Spectrum. I don't know if that matters. Did I miss something in the automations, or is there another way to accomplish what I want? Thanks for your help, and Ken." Wow, I understand now. I was about to go, why do you need to have your Wi-Fi not be turned on? If it was about battery life, then I was going to kind of have the moment where I go, hey, it's going to be okay. You don't need to worry about it. But this seems a little bit more involved. And so I believe, Rosemary, you have some suggestions that you can tell us about.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to go into the fixing the actual Xfinity problem in a moment, but I wanted to just say, when you're looking at shortcuts and you go into the automation section and you potentially, like me, have got lots of automations there, maybe you don't have any yet, that's okay, and you create a personal automation, not all of these are created equal. Okay, some of these are more powerful than others. And some of them have things in that you can't do any other way, like sleep is not on your iPad. It's a real shame. But the thing that you need to be aware of is the arrive and the leave and the before commute actions are not automated. They're reminders to run a shortcut. And this is where your problem has come in, because the problem that you've got is it's prompting you to run the shortcut. It's not just running the shortcut. And that's because, and I have one that I prepared earlier here, bringing up my best boo Peter. I've not got any actions in here, but I don't see an option to turn off ask before running. And if I pick something else, such as when CarPlay connects, I've got the option to turn off Ask Before Running and to turn off notifying me when it runs as well. And that's the trick that you need basically for whatever your automation trigger is, because it can't not ask you before it runs. If that option is not there, it's only going to go, hey, can I do the thing? And of course, if you don't see it or you're, busy doing other things, then it doesn't happen. And then it gets piled under a bunch of other notifications and, you get annoyed with it. So if you do need something like this, which is based on a trigger, something that you need triggered at a specific location, I'd actually recommend exit the Shortcuts app. I know, crazy. Settings, and then create a focus mode and create like a home focus mode or something. I'll just use this personal one that I've got for dummy purposes. And then what you can do is you can actually have a schedule or a location. And what you can do is have this turn on automatically when you get to a certain location. And this means that then that focus mode turns on, especially with iOS 16. This will be a lot easier because then you can have it show you a home screen instead of a, like a standard out and about home screen, etc. And you can also just block specific applications. Like you might want to block a Comcast application from sending you notifications, or Xfinity or Spectrum or whoever it is. But you don't have to, opt everything in iOS 16. So this will definitely be a really good solution. But then what you can do back in Shortcuts, once you've got your focus mode and you've got it set up, is you can have a personal automation for your focus mode. So I'll use the personal focus mode, and you can have it for when it's turning on, and then add your action, which would be to turn off the Wi-Fi for this. That's taking a moment to load. There we go. Either way, I'll just leave that. You get the idea. You've already figured out the action, and then you can turn off this Ask Before Running. And when you turn off the Ask Before Running, it automatically turns off the notification. But what you can also do, as well as turning off the Wi-Fi, you can turning on the Wi-Fi when you get home, you can turn off your focus mode if you want to. So you can just use it as a proxy to trigger what it is that you need, which is the actual shortcut. And this is quite useful for all sorts of things. I have a focus mode set up for when I get home because it runs a shortcut that takes any reminders, which I have set up and takes them and gives me a due date in half an hour, so that I don't get overwhelmed with a whole bunch of notifications when I get home, when I've got my hands full, I need to go wash my hands, things like that. It gets delayed by half an hour. But I did want to suggest, Macworld does seem to think you should be able to forget the Xfinity Wi-Fi network. And so if you can't, then that tells me that there's probably a profile installed. And they said, if you happen to have, like, say, a Comcast app, or it may be from Spectrum or something like that, and it's done something like install a profile on your device to make connecting to the Wi-Fi easier and better and safer and more secure, then that is almost certainly what's adding you to the the Xfinity hotspots and not letting you forget it. So go into the settings on your device, check under profiles. I'll just see if I can pop that up a second to show people what that looks like. And then you will be able to hopefully forget that. I've lost profiles now. Nope, they are hiding from me. Yes, I found them. So under settings, go to general, scroll down, and it's under VPN and device management. And then you can see potentially any profiles that have been installed here. So obviously I've got the iOS 16 beta software profile because that allows me to get the updates from Apple. But this Charles proxy one, this will do networking things. Actually, in this case, it lets me figure out exactly what an app is doing so that I can see whether or not it's good or bad. Something I use quite often to check out apps that I've not heard of before to see if they're good to recommend here on iOS today. But if there's a Comcast or an Xfinity or something that looks like it might be one of those there, have a look and see if you can remove that profile. And then you'll probably not have that problem with the Wi-Fi networks anymore. And I think that is most likely your issue. But you can also try just doing things like turning off cellular boost, trying to tell it to not automatically join the Wi-Fi network so that asks you before running. And as a last resort, there is a reset network settings button. But this will forget the Wi-Fi password of every Wi-Fi network you've ever connected to, and it may need you to set some things up again with your cellular data and network provider to make sure that you are getting phone calls and everything again. So I would save that as a last resort. But I think I have a feeling you've got a profile installed from an app that was being helpful, and it's being less than helpful, and we can work around it with shortcuts, but it's always good to solve the real problem.
Yay! I agree. And read through that whole guide, Glenn Fleischman's Macworld article as part of the Mac 911. It's very in depth and goes into different things that might be at the root of this. And I'm glad that that whole guide is there. Last but not least, in the Shortcuts Corner segment is one that I had. There is a great resource that I know Rosemary uses, I use, and many other people use called Camel. And Camel is a website where you can track the prices of different items on Amazon. So I, for example, when an item is out of stock that I want to get, I will use Camel as a way to alert me when the product is back in stock. But also if there's something on Camel, particularly electronics accessories that I might want, I will use the website to alert me when there's a good deal on it. And the way that I use it on my Mac is through the use of a little bookmarklet that basically lets me, when I'm on Amazon, I can find an item and then up in my bookmarks bar, or the favorites bar, I click on an emoji link that has 3 camels in it. That's how I know it's the camel. And it does a little thing that puts the Amazon item into my Camel account and lets me track it. And so I reached out to Rosemary the other day and asked if she knew of any shortcuts that existed out there that would work the same way. Because as it stands, I don't know how on an iPhone, for example, to be able to use that bookmarklet, by tapping on it in the toolbar. And maybe there's a way, and Rosemary, you might have that option as well. But I was just curious if there was a shortcut so that if I was at Amazon, I could just tap the share sheet and be able to camel it, as it were. And it looks like, based on the fact that there's a link in the show notes, that you have an idea.
I do have an idea. And I did just want to mention, actually, that Safari has a great little setting on iPadOS, not iPhone. Unfortunately, I'm showing the wrong device there. The problem with the Stream Deck pedal, the wrong pedal under my foot, but there we go. You can show your favorites bar. Okay, so that is the bar of bookmarks that might appear under your address bar on your Mac. And if you turn on show your favorites bar, then you may have something that's already there. So I have a little folder called bookmarklets, and I've got my camel in there. But Mikah, you asked for a shortcut. And so I did the absolute nerdiest thing I could do. And I copied the bookmarklet and I put it into the shortcut. Now, there is a couple of extra steps that are involved in this. I'll just show people what this looks like, because what a bookmarklet is basically is a little bit of JavaScript that just runs on the page, and it can read out data that is on the current page and take it and do something with it. And that's what camel is doing. So what I did is I took that bookmarklet, but to make it into a bookmarklet, because that's specifically something you can click and it should go into your address bar, it needs to be URL encoded. And so URL encoding basically takes all of those characters and then makes them safe to put in an address bar. So a space is not something that you can really put in an address bar. And that's often URL encoded as %20 or plus. It depends. But so I un-URL encoded that. I used shortcuts to do that. And then I put the content into a run JavaScript on web page action. And there was one bit that I needed to add, which was a completion true at the end. And now we have a camel shortcut. So I just opened, there happens to be right now, as we record, a good deal on the Apple TV, the 32 gigabyte 4K one on Amazon. But I just wanted to see actually on camel, whether or not there have been price drops on this before. Has it been this cheap? And so now if I scroll down, I can see my camel. And when I tap on that, then I can allow it to run on the webpage, and it will I just have to allow it to open the pop-up. There we go. And then it's opening this page in camel, just like Bookmarklet does. Yay. Awesome. And yeah, camel is very useful for seeing prices. Turns out, well, $120 is a pretty good price for an Apple TV, but it has been $110 previously, actually just a few months ago. But it looks like it wasn't $110 for very long. So this is probably a pretty good price, I guess, Mikah, if anybody's looking for a 4K Apple TV.
Absolutely. Well, Rosemary, thank you for that one. I will definitely be downloading that and installing it on my iPhone. I do use the bookmarklet on the iPad with that favorites bar showing. So this will be great for my iPhone. All right, let's move on to feedback and questions. I think we have time for both of these. We'll start with Tracy. And bear with us, this is a little bit long, but it has some great details in here. Tracy writes, I recently purchased an Apple Watch Series 7 with cellular for my 80-year-old mother. She lives alone and no longer drives, but we'd still like to track her location because she's having signs of dementia and memory loss. Physically, she's doing well, but I worry about her falling, especially because she has a small dog that loves to play at her feet. She's never had a smartphone or a computer, so I attempted to set her watch up using Family Setup and keep it as basic as possible with the time, with the date, and with the phone. She currently uses a Care smartwatch from Verizon, which has some nice tracking features, including history, but it's not very precise and it has no health info. The only way I've been able to share her location from her Apple Watch with family members using Android is by having them log into her iCloud account and using Find My. I've tried Glimpse and Google Maps and neither work on a standalone Apple Watch. I've tried Elder Check, but it seems that it does not support Family Setup. The Boundary Care app works the best. It's iOS only, but it requires the BC complication to be active, the BC complication being the Boundary Care complication, to be active on the watch face. It would be so much better if it could just run in the background to keep her watch face clean and eliminate the possibility of accidentally opening the app. Any ideas on simplifying the Apple Watch for an elderly person, specifically not requiring her to launch an app and have to share info? Is it possible to, quote, lock, quote, the watch face and only give her access to those complications? Basically, we want her to be able to check the time and date, to receive and possibly make phone calls, and maybe receive notifications about taking pills or being warned about an irregular heartbeat. But what we would like is to receive notifications if she falls, monitor her health activity, track her location, including a brief history of where she's been. Thank you for your help, Tracy.
Yeah, and I love this question, Micah, because it is definitely, like this is where the Apple Watch can be a really useful tool. My grandmother has one. I actually bought one for her after she fell over in the garden and her pelvis spontaneously broke, like it just shattered because she has osteoarthritis. This was several years ago. She is now a very firm lover of the Apple Watch and iPhone and has 2 iPads. Yeah, that's my grandma for you folks. But the Apple Watch is still a bit confusing for her because it is so easy to tap on something and end up in an app and you didn't know it existed and so on. But there is just one thing that I wanted to start with, which is please don't change the password on your mom's iCloud account and don't let your family members log into that again. Do not think that they are going to be malicious. I definitely don't think that, but it is so easy for them to end up accidentally locking her out of this iCloud account, and then the Apple Watch will not work at all until somebody goes and physically has access to the device to set it up again and sort everything out. So I would suggest if you if that ends up being part of a solution, that you create a second iCloud account. You can do this; it's free, and share her location with that iCloud account, and that's the one that people log into to check where grandma is, because especially if people are logging in from different locations and they're logging in frequently and from different devices, Apple is rightfully very suspicious when people do that, and it raises the alert level, and then it's quite likely that the account is going to get locked and you're going to have to go through a whole password reset process and everything. So, that's going to be quite annoying if you have to deal with that, especially if it's at a very inconvenient moment. But yeah, I did have a couple of other thoughts that might be useful for this sort of thing. Though unfortunately, none of them are particularly cheap as solutions. Such as you could look into family iPads. So have a couple of family members get an iPad, have them use it as, a great way to consume news and find out all sorts of cool things. There's this great show called iOS Today where they can learn loads about how to use the device. But then they can check on grandma in the Find My app there. And that could be really useful because then they'll actually see things and, they can also send her messages really easily and use FaceTime, which of course will work really well when she's on Wi-Fi, to have a quick chat with her, if something does happen. So that is, potentially a good solution. There is a possibility of maybe using an old iPhone plugged in somewhere in her house that she doesn't necessarily need to know about. You just leave it plugged in all the time, and all it does is it receives data from the Apple Watch and passes things on. But I did some research and I couldn't really find anything that is going to use the Apple Watch specifically to pass the location into the app on the iPhone. And this is the problem that you're going to have. The Apple Watch, while it's a great standalone device, it's kind of tricky to actually lock it down in the ways that you're looking at. And the other thing that I thought of, and this is the Shortcuts Corner Rosemary talking, is if she has an Apple TV or a HomePod Mini, a HomePod Mini, as a side note, is great for a lot of folks. My grandmother is really interested in getting one because then you can just talk to the little Siri ball and it will answer questions for you. You know, like what time is the news this evening, or you know, how hot is it going to be today? Things like that. It's quite nice, especially if she doesn't have anybody living with her to talk to. She gets a little bit of interaction with a voice that way every single day without having to phone somebody. But this would enable HomeKit. And the reason why HomeKit might be good, you don't have to go down the smart lights, smart plugs, or anything route. Absolutely could, maybe for a Christmas tree or something, some kind of holiday decoration for her. But you could use this with the content, with an automation, and do a get contents of URL. And this would then allow you to have it ping a service such as Pushover that can send a notification to multiple devices at the same time saying, hey, grandma's left home. Hey, grandma's arrived home. And this is not perfect, but if you know that she's at home, then, perhaps it's slightly less worrying to know about these things. Of course, none of these solutions are perfect. And Mikah, I'd really love to hear if you found any way to lock down the Apple Watch. Unfortunately, it seems like if it's your own Apple Watch, you definitely don't get the same options in the Watch app to lock things down. And so while I was playing with this stuff, it wasn't the same as having a watch that was set up for somebody else, which is the tricky part. So yeah, I'm sure you have some thoughts, Mikah.
Actually, in this case, I do not. I think that you covered it as best as we can. This is one of those things where Apple could improve. I see Amazon really focusing on elder care with its smart devices and has done a good job. I know it's weird to say, but has done a good job of considering the privacy implications and what people need in that situation, both the elders themselves and the family of those elders. And I think that Apple, with its focus on health and I think more on kind of health and fitness of younger folks, it could stand to keep in mind the growing number of people who are getting older and who need even more care. And so in that way, I would like to see this improved. I think that the balance is always making sure that this technology is not used in a negative way where, you're giving a watch to someone who is not an elder and who does not need elder care, and they don't know about these features and it's being used to track them. I mean, there are all of those implications that I know that Apple developers are concerned about. So who knows if we will ever see this fully and truly, but it would be nice to have for sure. It could stand to be better. And as far as the kind of lockdown as we have on an iPad and an iPhone, with that guided access, it would be cool to see some of those tools come to the Apple Watch in a bigger way. All right, let us move on to the... go ahead, please. Yeah, round us out.
I've just thought of one thing that potentially may or may not be useful. And of course, the Watch app on my iPhone is not playing ball. But on the Watch app, there is a setting for auto-launching apps and background app refresh. And especially if you are finding that an app is not correctly reporting information, it might be worth turning on that whole background app refresh and just looking through. There should be a list of apps here with toggles next to them. I am on the iOS 16 beta. So every so often things don't quite work as expected. So double check there. And also there's an auto launch option for automatically launching apps. I would suggest, I would highly recommend turning those off, especially if she's brand new to this sort of thing and is likely to get confused as to why apps are popping up at different times and so on. So definitely give those a look. But unfortunately, I don't have any other suggestions on that front.
All right. The last one comes from Stephen, and this is more of just an observation that I thought was a good one, so I wanted to mention it. Stephen writes, continuity camera for iPad. That's with a question mark at the end. The introduction of continuity camera could be a great solution to the badly placed iPad front-facing camera. With continuity camera, there would be no more side-eye. But it's Mac only? What a waste. So what Stephen is talking about is in the next version of macOS, there is a feature called continuity camera. With this feature, you can take an iPhone, plugged in or not, and essentially, as long as it's close to the Mac that you're using that's also logged in on your iCloud account, again, I was talking about these features at the get-go, these continuity features, you can use the phone as a camera for your Mac. So it will make your phone into a webcam for your Mac. And there is already a feature that that we're scrolling through on the show right now. That's the current version of continuity camera. And what it does is it lets you still use your phone or your iPad as a camera. But instead of it being a webcam, the way that it works right now is if you have a photo or a document that you want to quickly import to your Mac, it will let you take that photo with your phone or your iPad and then basically do that exchange for you where it automatically drops the photo. Instead of you taking the photo and then airdropping, you can just kind of skip all of that by saying, import this directly from my phone. But the next version of macOS will let you use your iPhone like a webcam, which is what I'm doing right now with an application called Camo Studio, but without that application in between. So I think this is an interesting suggestion because a lot of people do use their iPads as their main computing device. And if they have an iPhone as well that has that great camera, being able to use that instead would be kind of nice, especially if you could kind of walk around with your iPhone so you could continue to communicate while you're using the iPad kind of as the base. But I think that for Apple, they probably feel that the camera that's built into the iPad is good enough for that. And so they don't have that feature available. But I don't know. Rosemary, do you think continuity camera makes sense on an iPad?
Well, I mean, I'm currently holding my iPad. I apologize to folks watching the video for whom it's a bit bumpy, but I'm looking at the middle of my iPad and I had not noticed the side eye before, Stephen. You've opened my eyes to something. I have to stare at the bezel to look at the center of my device. Now, center stage on the new iPad minis and the new iPad Pros is much better at things like this, which you'll end up using in apps like FaceTime and Zoom and so on, which have enabled this where it will follow your face around or do its best to follow your face around. Every so often it gets a bit confused. But yeah, it would be really cool if we could have that, especially, you know, considering how Apple are always going on about how the iPad can be a great work device. And absolutely, it can be a fabulous work device if it can, you know, do what you need. But it is one of those things that the camera is in the top based on you like holding it in portrait mode. And so when you turn it to landscape, it's on the side. And yeah, maybe they should just move the camera to the top. I think that would probably solve most of the problems that people have got there, Micah. But yeah, you know, that's life, isn't it? And now every time I look at the camera, Stephen, or I look at my iPad when I'm using the forward-facing camera, which fortunately is very rarely, I will be realizing that I'm staring off to the side as far as everybody else is concerned. So yay, feature.
All right, with that, I can hear the music. It's time for App Caps. This is the part of the show where we place caps or some sort of coverings atop our heads to honor our app or gadget picks of the week. These are the apps or gadgets we are using now or maybe have known about for a long time, but they're ones that we're excited about and want to share with all of you. And so it is time. Rosemary Orchard, tell us about the cap atop your head and then tell us about your pick.
All right. Well, the cap atop my head it's a hat. It's a cowboy hat. It is a pink leopard cowboy hat, Micah, made of a fabulous plastic. Yes, just like you bought a pack of party bandanas or a party pack of bandanas, I bought a party pack of cowboy hats. So I'm sneaking these into my rotation. So you'll probably see quite a few of these coming up over the future episodes. But the app that I wanted to talk about today, it's one I've mentioned before, and it's just had a big update. It's updated to 3.0, and the developer threw in a really cool feature that I asked for at the last minute, which I was just so it's always lovely when developers listen to feedback, and the developers who listen to feedback deserve to be talked about so that more people can find out about them and hopefully not overwhelm them with requests, but, also ask for great things. And this app is called Focused Work, and it is a Pomodoro timer with a difference because it lets you plan out your different types of tasks that you're going to be doing, and then it allows you to get alerts for those things. And this is just a really cool app. Now, I've mentioned it before, so I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. But what you can do when you create a session is you can add all of your different blocks. And this is very useful. So you've got your just sort of time counting down blocks, you've got planning blocks, and you've got break blocks. Like breaks are tortoises, which I love, by the way. It's worth having a little bit of time to slow down. But the feature that I wanted to mention that Michael threw in last minute for me, which I was so, it was so nice, is a time breakdown. Because I suffer from something called time blindness, where I really struggle to figure out how long something's going to take. And when I am scrolled down on a list of things and I know I've got a bunch of other stuff built in, and I'm trying to plan something around, I know that this thing is happening at this time, so therefore I need to plan my workday around that. I don't want to be adding up all of these times. There is a time summary at the top as to how long overall something's going to take. But it's quite small. So if I shrink this a little bit, then it tells me it's 3 hours 56, but it's still difficult. Like, what is 3 hours 56 on from 9:35 in the morning? Well, I don't know. But if I tap on this view time breakdown, then I can actually input a time anytime that I want. So I could start this at 9:46 in the morning, and it will show me the exact time based on, assuming that all of these flow on directly from one another until the end. And I just think that that's really, really useful for planning out your day. I use this not just for planning out like regular repeating things. I also use this for planning out one-off things where I know that I'm going to need to do things, especially travel, where you know that you need to get to the airport this amount of time in advance, and it's going to take, like this long to get to the airport, and you need to do this thing on the way, which is going to take 15 minutes. And before that, you need an hour to do this and 15 minutes to do that, and so on. You can work backwards in your planning to add all of those things so that you actually have your day planned. And now with the addition of the time breakdown that has been added, it's just really, really useful. And I love this. Such a great feature. So yeah, if you have not already, check out Focus Work. It is available to download free from the App Store. And then there is an in-app subscription of, I believe it is $34.99 a year. I've got the UK prices in front of me, unfortunately, which is not helpful. $29.99 a year for the yearly option, but it also has a lifetime option of $59.99. Or you can just try it for a month for $4.99. But I find it's a really great and useful app, and it certainly helps me plan my day. And, it's just nice to get little dings. Also integrates with Safari to help you block web apps and things like that when you are supposed to be working, if you want to do things like that, and integrates with things like Toggle for time tracking if you need to do time tracking for work. And yeah, I just find this to be a really great app, and there's lots of cool widgets and so on involved. So take a look.
Awesome. Focused Work, the Pomodoro timer. I today am wearing a sort of lavender or light purple bandana. Yes, I did buy a party pack of bandanas so that I would have lots and lots of app cap hats or head coverings to wear for quite a few episodes. So you will continue to see these. The app that I want to talk about today is called Speeko. Speeko. And it is an app that helps you. I get this question a lot. How do I kind of practice with my voice? How do I train my voice? What do you do? I have had years and years and years of working on my voice, my delivery. First, all the way back in high school in speech and debate and theater, and then throughout the rest of the time as a news anchor, as a presenter, and now as a podcaster. And, folks would like to learn those skills, learn about breath support, learn how to kind of make the best use of their voice without necessarily having to build up those skills over the course of 10, 12 years. And Speako is an app that aims at helping to improve your voice through different warm-up exercises. So the app will start you out with some different warm-ups that you can do. These are little videos that kind of teach you about how to go about it. And then also some different exercises, including read aloud exercises, table topic exercises, vocal delivery, if you're doing online speaking, if you're doing teaching, body language, and if you do have some stage fright or some anxiety regarding going up and speaking in front of the public, then there are some tips here for how to kind of manage your nerves and better calm yourself before you take the stage. Public speaking anxiety is one of the most common fears that exists. And so it is important to understand management of that, particularly as it relates to an overall understanding of how to manage your fears and how to kind of work through them. I also like the body language exercises. This isn't as what's the word I'm looking for? Applicable to those of us who are podcasters, because for the most part, we're not making real eye contact with people. But for people who are speaking in front of a group of people, or who on their daily basis are having conversations, this eye contact is very important. And so it teaches you about that. And then there's also the opportunity to get actual feedback for your voice. And so you can use this to kind of get a better understanding of how you sound, how your voice is changing over time in particular. And I love that you can then go back and kind of learn a little bit more, or rather go back and see how you've achieved improvements over time. The app is available to download for free, and some of the classes are available for free. It is $11.99 a month or $50 a year. So $12 a month or $50 a year. You can tell then that what they really hope that you'll do is subscribe for a year versus that month. And so for a whole year, you'd have access to all of the features here and be able to exercise your voice and work on communication. So Speako, very popular, more than 150,000 people who use the app, and it can help you with your speech delivery and all of the other things that are involved. We kind of forget about those other little tidbits that are involved in public speaking, or even just in communicating with others in general. So that is my app for the week. And with that, we come to the end of this episode of iOS Today. This is the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePodOS, etc., etc. iOS Today at twit.tv. That is the email you use to send us your questions, your feedback, your concerns, your app suggestions, the excitement you have about the feature that we talked about today. All of that stuff goes there. If you'd like to watch us record this show live, it can be a lot of fun. You just go to twit.tv/live, and we have all the different places where we are live online. But we think the best way to get the show is by subscribing or following. You do that by going to twit.tv/iOS and clicking subscribe to audio or subscribe to video. There you will see a drop down for all sorts of different services where we are, different platforms where we are. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We try to be in all of the different places and on all of the different apps so that you can get the show there. That's every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific live. And then later in the day, the finalized version goes out for those of you who are subscribers or followers. If you'd like to get all of our shows ad-free, well, we've got a way for you to do that. You can check out Club Twit. For $7 a month, you get every single Twit show with no ads. Yes, no ads for all of the shows. You get access to the exclusive Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. Outtakes, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, all sorts of stuff there. And access to the Club Twit Discord server. That is a place where you can go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members. Super easy to sign up and get chatting. And also those of us here at Twit, you can chat with us as well and hang out with your friends there, your fellow Club Twit members. $7 a month, $84 a year gets you all of that. Twit.tv/clubtwit. And with that $7 a month subscription, you'll also get access to my show, Hands on Mac, which is a show filled with tips and tricks for not just Mac, but also your iPhone, your iPad, etc. Lots of different good stuff there. The show is well on its way. And also Hands on Windows, which is Paul Thurrott's show covering all things Windows. So some of you out there I know are iPhone users who have Windows machines. So you may want to check out Hands on Windows, which you get as part of your Club Twit membership. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where do they go to do so?
The best place to go is over at rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to all the things I do, including iOS Today, a few other podcasts, and of course, Take Control of Shortcuts, which is, my latest book. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at rosemaryorchard and lurking all the time in the Club Twit iOS Today chat room, where I do see all of the requests. There's some really good questions I need to get back to answering in there. Micah, where can folks find you?
You can find me online at Micah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online with the little QR codes and whatnot to be able to follow me or add me as a friend there. And of course, you can check me out on iOS Today, as well as on Tech News Weekly on Thursdays and Hands on Mac on Thursdays, and the Tech Guy radio show, which I record on Saturdays. With Leo Laporte. And I think, I was on Bill Handel's show this morning talking about some fun tech topics for Tech Tuesday. And that covers it. I'm in a lot of places, too many places probably. But if you find me, say hi. And thank you for watching. And of course, thank you to all of you for watching this show, iOS Today. I hope that you out there had that bright-eyed moment of, wait, I can do that? As we were talking about the fun features on iOS, those hidden gestures and features that you should definitely make use of on your devices. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Hey, we should talk Linux. It's the operating system that runs the internet, a bunch of game consoles, cell phones, and maybe even the machine on your desk. But you already knew all that. What you may not know is that Twit now has a show dedicated to it, the Untitled Linux Show. Whether you're a Linux pro, a burgeoning sysadmin, or just curious what the big deal is, you should join us on the Club Twit Discord every Saturday afternoon for news, analysis, and tips to sharpen your Linux skills. And then make sure you subscribe to the Club Twit exclusive Untitled Linux Show. Wait, you're not a Club Twit member yet? Well, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up. Hope to see you there.